Alright, so today I'll be showing a demo of the organism and how it's working, and right now I'm starting on equipment and kind of how that'll work for organisms. Basically they can generate items and then hold those items, and those items can be dropped. And you can see here like the orange kind of dropped off the tree, and then these two are still on it and they can be grabbed. The grabbing is not implemented yet, but they can be like detached and attached from generating. And so I'll demonstrate the spirit fatigue and how that affects health and energy. So we've got the spirit here. This is just randomly assigned for now, but when it starts it'll be like selected from the character, but also based on stats. Obviously for a tree you're not going to select it, but it'll be based on just like what kind of object it is. So for example, a tree is going to be more like earth and jungle, whereas a rock is going to be like definitely more earth. And it also depends what biome it is in, so like a jungle tree is going to have higher jungle, stuff like that. Then we've got health, energy. Health's pretty self-explanatory, gets to 0, it's dead. Energy has to do, at least for an organism, just generating items. And so if it doesn't have any energy, it won't generate. I don't have that implemented right now, but that's the functionality for energy on organisms. And for characters it'll be like using abilities and various things. For fatigue, we've got the same elements, and basically as you take damage it'll build up these fatigues, and after it passes stage 1, which will be about here, it'll start doing effects on the character, and you'll see that visually, and in the spirits, the health and the energy. And so earth will do damage to health, and it'll also damage the lightning spirit, as that is the counter, or it counters lightning. And it also changed the fatigue for lightning, so as you're taking earth fatigue will decrease, but the lightning fatigue will also decrease. And fire will do energy damage, jungle will do health, frost will do energy, lightning will do energy. When the full character is implemented, there will be armor, which is separate from health and energy. It's another resource, basically. And fire will damage armor instead. Armor basically takes a part of the damage and sends it to health, but then also sends it to your current equipment. And the difference between armor and health, when you take damage from any of the elements, there will be resistance based on your spirit levels. So let's say for this, since you're taking jungle damage, it's going to be highly resistant to it, since the jungle's high. And that also works for jungle. Basically each spirit has counters, like things that it counters and things it's countered by. So for example, jungle. If you have high jungle, you'll also have high resistance to earth and lightning, because jungle counters earth and lightning. And so we'll see that that's resistant to health, or like health will be resistant, but energy and armor do not take in resistances. And so that's useful when you have it lower, but not as useful when you have high resistance. So if there's an example of you're taking high damage from something that you don't have resistance to, it'll be good if you have armor, and then bad if it's going directly to your health. Then each spirit affects different stats. So earth affects your maximum health, fire affects your energy regen, jungle affects your health regen, frost affects overall resistances, just making you stronger in that way, and lightning affects overall energy maximum. So you'll see as these change, it'll also change the max, the regen. Organisms actually don't have regen, just to make up for processing, and I figured not really necessary to have them regen. And as the fatigue damage ticks, it also takes away the counter spirit. So for example, again, earth, it counters lightning, like if that's the direct counter, and so it'll decrease lightning spirit. And only the highest fatigue is active at one time. So we'll see. This deal damage will just do a random element damage, and then heal will do a random amount of heal in any of the elements. So we see that here, that was earth damage, and you can see the effects here, so it'll do a different effect depending on what it is. And so we can see we have fire fatigue, that's what the fire there is, and we're taking fire damage because of that. And then once it's down, there's a threshold here. Once it's down, it'll do no more damage, and it'll just have fatigue. And then this is also, the model is based on the highest spirit. So we can see jungle, it looks like a jungle tree. And if we can try to get the spirit to a lower one, it'll change. It's based on stages, so basically this is representing the spirit, which is measured in thousands, but that's cut down to stages. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe, up to 20 stages. And so it has to pass a stage to actually change. So it could be that this is a little bit lower, but it hasn't like reached a stage change. And that's just for optimization. If I have it updating every time a spirit level is changed, it's going to be changing a lot. If, like, say it's just juggling between the two values, and that would just be a nightmare for frame rate and stuff like that. So we'll just keep testing this, see if it changes. You see, so now it's earth is the highest, so taking earth damage, you can see the effect down here, and then every time it gets hit. And you can see that lowers lightning a lot as well. And you can see it looked like the energy was going up, but that's actually because since lightning was decreasing, it was decreasing the maximum energy. And I believe I have Frost doing the max health actually, because you can see as it goes down, the max health goes down as well. And you can see for heal, it does a different kind of effect. It goes like in a circle around and goes up. But same with the elements, so you can see that's earth one, fire one, jungle. So the jungle's supposed to be like poison clouds. Down's supposed to look like. And we'll just keep dealing damage. And I'm gonna try it again, see if we can get a different spirit level. We'll see how that goes. Alright, so here you can see it's lightning because that's the highest spirit, and so it's a different texture. It actually took a while to be able to get this not to immediately kill the game or like cause massive frame rate when it switches. And so what I ended up doing is having a list of models, and it just activates different models rather than changing the whole texture of the whole model. And I found that was a lot more optimal. So you can see it's doing lightning. Hopefully we can get it to get it lower than jungle. Alright, yeah, there we go. And so it switched to jungle, and you can see the texture changed. So you can see the damage taking doing to lightning, and if that gets lower, it should switch to one of these. They're kind of about the same. I think frost is a bit higher. Fire, frost. So we see that did just health damage for now, but later we'll do armor, and then we'll see fire also lowered frost a bit. We'll heal up. And the higher the fatigue gets, the more it does. So we'll see, as it's higher, it does a lot more damage, and as it gets lower, it does less, but it also decreases less. So see, now it's only doing 5, before it was doing about 70 each time. Currently, healing doesn't gain or decrease fatigue, but I'm thinking it might be useful to have it decrease the fatigue as you heal up. I also think maybe not having fatigue lower other fatigues, just because I'm not sure how much sense that makes. I want things to feel like they make a lot of sense, like earth lowering the spirit when it takes damage. And then what I don't have implemented yet is that, oh, we can see it changed again, is that when your fatigue gets to the top, it'll do different effects. For earth, that'll be petrify. For fire, it'll be combustion and just explode with fire damage. Jungle, it'll be blindness and more poison. Frost, it'll be frozen. So for a character, like, that'll be basically root, because I believe only the feet will be frozen. Earth, it's basically a stun until they get hit. Fire is just explosion. Jungle, blindness. Then lightning is a stun, basically paralysis. And so the kind of the difference between lightning at max and earth at max is earth is a long stun, but if you take damage, you're immediately out of it. Whereas with the paralysis, you can keep taking damage, but it's a shorter stun. And so that's basically what I've got so far. Something I'll show for code side, if you're interested in that, is basically I'm making all of the scripts to be very like they're components, and they can be easily added or removed from a object without causing any errors. And then also I'm doing inheritance with the different objects. So a game object, which would be something like a rock or an item, just anything in the game is a game object. And so anything in the game will have a master, model, and spirit. And so in the master we can see it has model script, spirit script. And if we go to game organism, we can see it has a lot more. It can have a model, spirit, resistance, fatigue effect, health, energy, equipment. It can generate item, and it has a feedback. And so, although all of these can be on it, they don't have to be on it. But in the game organism, we'll have, you can see it inherits the other ones from that script over there. And then we can see it also has new ones, resistance, fatigue, and all the others. And then it also has like has not, and we'll see when I click play, it'll show has each of these. And this kind of works for checks from different scripts. So let's say, for example, resistance is dependent on spirit because you can't have resistance if you don't have spirit. And so we'll see if like I remove the spirit, it's not going to like cause any problems. Oh, except for the fact that the model is dependent on it. So what I'll probably do is just have a default one, because have not tested that. So yeah, we can see here it does not have spirit. But the model basically sets the model based on the highest spirit, and since there is no spirit, it's not setting a model. So what I'll do is just have a default, if there is no spirit, do like just 0. But, I mean, there should never not be a spirit, but nonetheless, I'll have that check. That back up. And so we can see, if we get rid of that, put it back. If we get rid of energy, it'll still work just fine. So we can like do damage still. We can heal still. It just doesn't do energy, and we'll get some errors, but these are just something I put in, so it's not actual errors. Oh wait, here, except for this one. This is because of the canvas. I didn't actually code this to like be useful. It's just for testing purposes, so I don't have any checks to make sure that errors like this don't pop up. Whereas if I do this, there will be in the format of an error. However, it's not an actual error. It's kind of a check I put in. And so if I go to this, this one's actually, oh, this is actually just a reminder. Let's see if we can get, let's see if I do healing, because that costs energy. So there should be either, might be a warning, or maybe a message. Should be an error, but I'll go back and check that. Basically, it'll go through and it'll say, okay, so this doesn't exist, still do the operation, but send an error that this, like, none of the energy is being changed because it does not exist. And we can see here kind of doing lightning effect from the fatigue. And that's pretty much everything so far. Basically for the organism, I just have to finish up the equipment and probably some of the fatigue effects at the max. Like obviously petrify doesn't make sense to have on it. You don't blind a tree. Rooting doesn't make sense. And then paralysis doesn't make sense. But like combustion does, and then just kind of the visual effects, like you could still have like lightning shooting throughout when it gets to the top, or frost, it could be all frozen. Yeah, that's basically it so far. For the equipment, just kind of different objects on it. We can see the slots. And these will also be objects, and so we can see here like it has an object master. I haven't created any of the item scripts yet, and so basically when it's done, it'll be, rather than game object master, it'll be item master, but that'll be a like a subclass of game object master. And so all the code will still work. Basically, I'll have different textures for each kind: earth, fire, jungle, frost, lightning. And basically, it won't change as the model changes. However, the generate item, which I haven't implemented yet, will generate items based on whatever model it is. So let's say it's earth, it's generating these oranges, but then it turns to fire, it's going to generate the fire fruit instead. And that'll have different properties. So for example, like earth will do, at the simplest form, earth will do earth healing, fire will do fire energy healing, or something like that. But it also have different effects, like maybe fire gives you more cast speed, earth might give you stronger attacks. And that won't be implemented until much later, because basically I want to focus for right now finishing up game organisms, moving on to characters, and then just getting a playable combat demo. And you'll be able to like interact with trees, attack them, destroy them, and then other players as well, or like enemy characters. Mess around with those. And that's all for the update today. Thank you.